أن لا إله إلا الله
Islam in Focus is brought to you by Gala Travels. For all your travel needs, call Gala Travels at 416-491-5314 or visit galatravels.com. Port Serve International Limited, providing cargo handling services internationally. Please visit portserve.com. This is brought to you by 5 Ways Financial. Free consultation at no obligation. Visit 5ways.com.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Who can be better in religion than one who submits himself entirely to Allah? Hello and welcome to another episode of Branches of Light on Sahara TV. Today we will begin our discussion on Imam Hussain alayhi salam. We're going to have 3 series on this, on Imam Hussain alayhi salam. As we know, Imam Hussain is probably the most well-known Imam among all the Ahlul Bayt. He is universally known, and the Prophet has said about Imam Hussain is from me and I am from Imam Hussain. Today we're joined by our guest, Hujjatul Islam, Maulana Rizvi, who will discuss the life of Imam Hussain. Maulana Rizvi is the resident alim of Jafri Islamic Center in Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our program. I would like to ask you to discuss, first of all, the historical conditions around the birth of the Holy Imam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As far as the historical context in which the birth of the Imam took place, we are looking at the later part of the life of the Prophet. He is already in Medina, and he is starting to establish the first Islamic society in Medina. Although from the financial and economic point of view, the family of the Prophet were still going through very difficult times, but those early years of the Hijrah were also the years of happiness for them, for the success that God had given to them. On a personal level, for Prophet Muhammad and his daughter Baby Fatima and Imam Ali, the birth of the grandson of the Prophet was a very important occasion. God had blessed them with one son a year before, and then in the 4th year of the Hijrah, Imam Hussain was born. And so indeed it was a very happy occasion for the family of the Prophet. The most significant event which our narrators, people like Sheikh Saduq and Sheikh Tusi have mentioned, is this narration that even Almighty Allah sent the Jibreel, the angel, to the earth to congratulate the Prophet and convey the greetings of God on this occasion of the birth of Imam Hussain. And there is a very interesting story that when Jibreel was coming with the entire, with the group of angels to visit the Prophet, he happened to pass by an angel known as Fitrus, who had been in a way banished for something which was not according to his appropriate for him. And when he realized the purpose of Jibreel going to the earth to greet the Prophet, he asked to be taken along. And that's where we see that after greeting the Prophet, when Jibreel entered the case of Fitrus to the Prophet asked him to go and, according to one narration, touch the body of Imam Hussain, and the other was just touch the cradle of Imam Hussain. And with that blessing and grace, Almighty God forgave the mistake that Fitrus has done. And this itself is a very important event where we see, according to the narrations in Hadith, Fitrus flew away saying Man mithli na Taqatul Hussain bin Ali wa Fatima. Who can be like me, who have been released from this chains and shackles that I had because of Hussain bin Ali and Fatima. And Sheikh Tusi has a very beautiful comment after narrating this. He says, we cannot see Hussain physically, but we still have the ability to go to the shrine of Imam Hussain in Karbala, and through that shrine we can ask for intercession of Hussain with Almighty God.
Now, as I mentioned earlier about the relationship of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and Imam Hussain, can you tell us a bit about that relationship? It was a very deep and intense relationship between them.
Well, as far as the relationship is concerned, we have to realize that the Prophet of Islam is a universal prophet who gives example of all different aspects of life. And the family life also was a very important part of his day-to-day life. When we look at the relationship of Imam Hussain alayhi salam with his grandfather, we see a very close relationship, although they had separate house, but they were close to one another. And because of that, we have so many incidents where we see the Prophet would go and visit them. And even the grandsons, Imam Hussain and his elder brother, Imam Hassan also would go very regularly to see the Prophet. There's an incident where the Prophet was in the sajda, in the congregational prayers. And the sajda went on and on, it was prolonged. Later on, some of the companions thought maybe wahi is coming on him. That's why he's, prolonging the sajda.
They couldn't see him.
Yeah, they couldn't see him because they were in the state of sajda themselves. And the Prophet said, no, nothing like that happened. It was my grandson Hussain who had sat on my back in the state of sajda, and I didn't want to disturb him. Until when he left, I got up from my sajda. So these were one dimension is a very personal relationship between the grandfather and the grandson, but it also shows the importance that the Prophet wanted the Muslims to realize that these are not just normal children. And there is also one more interesting event where he was actually carrying his two grandsons on the back and walking, moving in such a way as if he was the horse and they were riding on him. And one of the companions happened to look at that, and he said, "Ni'mal markab," means this is such a good, vehicle for you, referring to the grandsons. And the Prophet said, "Ni'mal rakibani huma," means, well, it's not only the horse who is good, even the riders are good. And so these were all different ways where the Prophet also expressed his love for his grandsons publicly and openly.
Right. Well, I guess it's not so much related to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, but I think it's important for Muslims to note how the Prophet showed respect for kids in general. And I think it's unfortunate that as Muslims sometimes we don't do that. We don't pay attention to that aspect of, even when we're praying. We have to respect kids, we have to care about their needs, we have to understand that they're just kids. And, at that time, I believe, there wasn't so much emotion shown to kids. And he used to kiss them, as you say, play with them. So that's another aspect, I think, that...
Well, you are absolutely right that the Prophet... actually, there are incidents where when the Prophet kissed one of his grandsons, somebody... in a way objected to that, and he said, this is not normal, I don't do it. And the Prophet said, well, if you don't do it doesn't mean this is not appropriate. And the Prophet uttered those words where he says, a person who does not have love for his younger ones and does not respect the older ones is not one of us.
Maulana Rizvi, can you tell us a bit about the interaction of Imam Hussain alayhi salam with his family members?
I think I would probably prefer to go to some of the examples which are there in the Quran about interaction of Imam Hussain with his family, especially during the lifetime of the Prophet of Islam. Although the Quran does not mention Imam Hussain by name, but there are certain events in the Quran where he is part of that. For example, we see the famous verse which is known as Ayat Tathir, which is in chapter 33, Ayat 33. And that's a very important event where we see the closeness between the family members, even though they have different households. The Prophet is not feeling well, so he just goes into his daughter's house and he says, I would like to lie down. Can you give me a mantle or a blanket? And then gradually, Imam Hassan comes in, Imam Hussain comes in, and then Ali comes in, and eventually even Fatima is there, and the Prophet covers all of them, and then Almighty God reveals this ayat, saying that these are the Ahlul Bayt, and I would like to keep them purified, which shows this essence of infallibility about these 5 individuals. But the important thing is that this is a family coming together for a very special purpose. But that also shows how close they were with one another. Again, we see in Surah Al-Dahr or Surah Al-Insan, these are 2 different names of that surah, where the story of Hassan and Hussein, who had become ill at one time, and the Prophet had gone to visit them, and he had suggested to Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima that it would be good if you do a nazar, a commitment with God to fast for 3 days if the children are given their health very soon. And the whole story is there in the Quran where for the 3 days they fast, and right at the time of iftar, when it's time to break the fast, somebody comes at the door and they ask for food. And not only Ali and Fatima, but even Hassan and Hussein and their maid Fizza also give away their main food, which was the bread. And that's where you see this whole issue of inculcating and training the children with the spirit of sacrifice and generosity towards the less fortunate members of the community. And so we also see, for example, later on in Surah Al-Imran, there is an event where the Prophet again brings the whole family as a family when there is dialogue with the Christians who had come from Najran, which is in the southern parts of Arabian Peninsula. And there also, although there were many people around in Medina at that time, but the Prophet chose only Fatima and Ali and Hassan and Hussein to be with him in that mubahala. And so these are important events mentioned in the Quran where Imam Hussain as a young person was closely involved, and the impact on the character and personality of Imam Hussain is very obvious from these events, that he was always very generous, and this is known. He was known as somebody who was always looking forward to the suffering and the needy people, to the extent that when Banu Asad, the people of Iran, Karbala, who came for the burial, they asked Imam Zainul Abidin, according to our narrations, that what is this mark on the back of Imam Hussain? And his son says, this is the mark of the weight that Hussain used to carry at night, a sack of breads, and the bread that he would go and give to the poor people in Medina every night. He could have asked somebody else to do it, but he was doing it by himself.
Following the tradition of Imam Ali, his father.
Yes, yes.
Is there any thing in history about his interaction with his kids that we have with his wives?
Well, as far as his own life as a family member of his own family, we see the example, especially in the context of Karbala, the way he showed his love and devotion to his daughters, Sakina, even the way he used to interact with his son Ali Akbar. There is some verses and poetry which is attributed to Imam Hussain, where he says, I cannot live in a house where Sakina and Rabab are not there. And so he was, in a way, even willing to express his devotion for his family. And they were with him. I think the whole event of Karbala, in a way, shows the total dedication and support and closeness of his family, that everyone was with him in this event of Karbala.
Can you describe the underlying reason behind the event of Karbala and what led to it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As far as the underlying reason or the historical background for the event of Karbala, there are different ways of looking at it, but I would like to just present one perspective. And that is about, this whole issue can be looked from the angle of relationship between the ruler and the religion. We have in Islam a very clear understanding that the process of governance and government has to be under the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Of course, when we talk about the Sunnah of the Prophet, we believe that this is the Sunnah and the tradition which has been preserved by the Ahlul Bayt. And the Muslims in general understand this, and they believe that yes, a legitimate ruler can only be a person who follows the Quran and the Sunnah. Unfortunately, we see that after the passing away of the Prophet, the system of leadership devised by the people had many flaws in it. And although initially the flaws were not that obvious, but gradually the whole system was diluted, to the extent that we see 50 years after the passing away of the Prophet, you have a person like Yazid bin Muawiyah, he comes to power. And when we look at the character of Yazid, the belief of Yazid, we see that he had no respect for the Quran, the values of Islam, or the Sunnah of the Prophet. He is somebody who openly actually denied the Quran is the revelation of God. From the way I look at it, for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it wasn't Yazid who was the problem. It was the silence of the people. How could the Ummah, silently take in this kind of situation where nobody is rising up, nobody is protesting against coming up of Yazid as the ruler and the Khalifa?
Imam Hussain and the oppression that Yazid was putting on the people. Now, what was the strategy the Imam used, and what can we learn from that to deal with oppression in our time?
Well, when we look at the strategy used by Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it actually shows us on one hand, the continuity of the purpose of all of our Imams, Imam Hussain, Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, and Imam Hussain. But it also gives us this lesson that every situation is unique, every problem is unique, and you have to use different methods to deal with it. And this is where we see that the glory of Imam Hussain alayhi salam is not his personal glory only. It is multiplied because of he takes his family with him. And it's interesting if you see the purpose. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when he was first confronted by the governor of Yazid, that we have this message from Yazid that either you pledge allegiance, do bay'at, or we have to kill you and send your head to him. And this is where I come to realize that when Imam went to see Walid, the governor, initially Imam tried to diffuse the issue by saying that I am not someone who would pledge allegiance or respond to demand in secrecy. Tomorrow morning you come to the mosque and publicly ask about it, and then you'll get my response. But when he was threatened there, that, well, either you give the answer or we kill you, that is where he declared very clearly by saying that, Yazid is a person who is a drunkard, a sinner, killer of innocent lives, whereas I am a person who come from the family of the Prophet, where revelation descended. Almighty God showered the mercy of universe through us. And so a person like me would never give in to a person like Yazid. I think the words he chose are very important. Where he says, a person like me, he doesn't just say me. No, anyone in my place and who believes in my values would not accept anyone like Yazid or whoever takes the place of Yazid. So a perpetual message that you should not give into a person like Yazid and his character.
Maulana Rizvi, we know that Imam Hussain, before leaving Medina, he wrote a will to explain why he is going towards Karbala, what his intention is. Can you explain about that will, please?
The will that Imam Hussain alayhi salam wrote before leaving Medina is very significant, because as soon as he realized that his life was in danger in Medina, because he had expressed his opposition to Yazid, he decided to leave Medina and go to Mecca, which is a sanctuary for Muslims. But before leaving, he wrote a will and he gave it to his brother Muhammad Hanafiya. And this will is not like the normal will that people write. It's not about, where will I be buried, what will happen to my estate after me. This is actually a mission statement, because Imam begins by saying, this first part is negation of wrong motivations to him, and then he explains why. He says, number one, he says, I have not risen against Yazid because I seek adventure, or because I am arrogant, or I want to be unjust and unfair to anyone. No, these are not the reasons. As far as adventure seeking is concerned, we see somebody who goes for seeking an adventure, to accomplish something in a dangerous situation. He would go by himself. He wouldn't take his children with him. And so Imam makes it very clear that I'm not seeking adventure here. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. This is what he writes. He says, I have risen against Yazid because I seek a reformation in the community of my grandfather. I would like to amr bil ma'ruf, to promote good in the society and prevent people from evil. And he says, by doing this, I'm not doing anything new. وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي علي بن أبي طالب. He says, by doing this, I'm just following the same footsteps of my grandfather and my father Ali bin Abi Talib. And so it makes very clear that his purpose was based on the religious grounds of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar, which is to promote good in the society and prevent evil. It was not as for seeking power, absolutely not. His main purpose was to awakening the slumbering conscience of the Ummah, even at the expense of losing his life and those who were near and dear to him at that time.
I think it's amazing. Prophet Ibrahim was tested to see whether he can sacrifice his son, and he didn't go through the whole process because of the lamb that was sent to him. But Imam Hussain alayhi salam was tested by sacrificing so many of his beloved ones.
Well, that's the greatness of Imam Hussain, that he took this step courageously, consciously, knowingly of the consequences. He knew that he will lose everything as far as the dunya and the world is concerned. But the greatness is that it was not only he alone he took this step. His entire family was with him in this. And that's why we see that when he left Medina, he was not alone. He went with his family. And Mecca was the first point as far as his strategy to let the world know about his stand against Yazid bin Muawiyah.
Well, Rizvi, can you discuss why, when Imam Hussain left Medina, why did he choose Mecca to go there? And after, why did he not complete his Hajj? Why did he leave Mecca? And maybe touch on the significance of the day he left Mecca.
Well, as far as the choice of Mecca is concerned, we had to realize that Imam Hussain alayhi salam, once he made this decision that he has to stand up against Yazid, he didn't want that to happen in secrecy and the world doesn't know about it. Those days we didn't have newspapers or radios or reporters or anything like that. The only way where the Imam was able to maximize the exposure of his message was by going to Mecca, because those days people, when they come for Hajj from all different parts of the Muslim world, they actually travel 2 or 3 months before. And so strategically Mecca was very important. That would be the place where Imam would be able to meet with the people from different parts of the Muslim world. And when they find out why is Hussein there from the month of Sha'ban, which is so far away from Dhul Hijjah, the month of pilgrimage, the questions would come up. And he, being the grandson of the Prophet, the only surviving grandson, all pilgrims coming from different parts of the world would definitely go and visit him also. So he will get this chance to talk to them and let them know his stand as far as Yazid is concerned. So that was the reason why he chose Mecca. But then we see gradually Yazid also gets the information that Hussein is in Mecca, and Imam Hussain realized that there are people who are coming in the garbs of pilgrims with the intention of killing him, even if they find him doing tawaf around the Kaaba. And he didn't want the sanctity of the holy mosque to be violated. But besides that, I think, he could have left Mecca on the 1st of Zulhijjah, on the 3rd or the 5th. But he chose 8th of Zulhijjah, which is very significant. And this was done according to a strategy that Imam had in mind. Because you can just imagine that 8th of Zulhijjah is the time when all the caravan of pilgrims would be leaving the city of Mecca going to Mina. There's Arafat, going there. And on that day, you can see all the Hujjaj are going towards Arafat, but there's one caravan going the other way. And so even those Hujjaj who are there who have not met Imam Hussain, they will be forced to think, what is this caravan? Why is it going the other way?
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Inshallah, we will continue with this discussion in our next episode. Thank you for staying with us. Please join us next time. May God be with you.
Islam in Focus is brought to you by Gala Travels. For all your travel needs, call Gala Travels at 416-491-5314 or visit galatravels.com. Islam in Focus is brought to you by PortServe International Limited, providing cargo handling services internationally. Please visit portserve.com. Islam in Focus is brought to you by Five Ways Financial, free consultation at no obligation. Visit fiveways.com.
tricks that Yazid was playing, and informed the people that, oh people, Imam Hussain, my brother, had signed a treaty with Yazid's father, and now you hear and we hear that Yazid is asking me